It's not just
Yes.
one person in Russia, Putin, who is attacking Ukraine. It's the whole country that is supporting his regime. My grandmother lost 4 siblings during famine caused by Russia. And anger, it's part of these kids growing up, and it becomes the part of their games. Was not as harmful as the situation of Serhiy's family. Like, Serhiy didn't have an opportunity to go to the psychiatrist, to go to the psychologist. I wanted this couple to stay together. I was wishing a happy end for my documentary. Learning. It was a long process. We didn't realize the big ambition of Russia to capture the whole Ukraine. And I'm very grateful for this chance to see your eyes and to share. I know that it can be very uncomfortable to face so much pain.
Hi, Cinema Express viewers. This is Akshay. Today we are going to have an interaction with Lesia Diak, a Ukrainian documentary filmmaker. She has recently made a documentary film, Dad's Lullaby. We are going to talk about that. Hi, Lesia.
Hello, nice to meet you, and thank you for giving this time to the story.
I tried to wish you on the film, and I also wanted to say sorry that both the innocent Ukrainians and Russians are facing a hard time because of vested political interests. So,
Ukrainians are facing a hard time, but I try to highlight in my speeches and interviews that the world needs to be aware that the citizens of Russia, like the regular citizens of Russia, they comply with the regime. And there are very few people who protest, who really support Ukraine, genuinely support Ukraine and go to protest, and they end up in prison. But the rest of the population is actually complying with the regime. And we need to understand their responsibility. It's not just one person in Russia, Putin, who is attacking Ukraine. It's the whole country that is supporting his regime and is contributing to it.
So it's not just the government's problematic policies.
No.
It's also the citizens.
No, it's on a larger scale.
So
yeah, you can ask the questions about the film.
Yeah. So first up, I want to ask two things about the film. First thing is, this is not even about the Russian invasion of Ukraine after 2022, I think. It's not about that. And also, whenever we talk about the impacts of war, there are films that only talk about the tangible losses faced by the soldiers on the front line. We only see a very few films which focus on the family damages and loss of livelihoods and stuff. Uh, is this what you wanted to make at the very first, you know, when you thought of making a film at the very first occasion, or
Yeah.
How did you?
Yes, I had an experience in my own life of being in a relationship with a soldier and veteran once he returned from war, and it deeply impacted me, the way he was feeling, the way he was not able to love, to communicate. It left scars on me, and I wanted to tell the story of a family within the family that has children. That's why I went for Serhiy Zinchuk family. And you're very, like, you understand it very well when you're saying that this is about invisible damage, like the emotional damage that is slipped into the house and all the moments that are supposed to be safe, like, because the house, it's the family, it's the first world that welcomes a person once the person is born, and it's the first system that welcomes the person after the war, and it's like tremendously important. And the burden that the family members are facing is also huge. because we need to educate the family members how to be with the person who comes back from war. And this wasn't done in 2018 when I started filming That's Lullaby. This wasn't done on the state level. The trainings for the families, for the closest people of war veterans. Now it is better because there are a lot of activists who are trying to implement such programs, and the society is more active. But back then, the issue was even like more difficult because it was rarely spoken, the traumas of the ones who embrace the veterans. And that's why I decided to make a documentary, like to draw attention to it and to start this dialogue within our society and, of course, outside of Ukraine too.
So, through Dad's Lullaby, you wanted both the families to understand the pain of a soldier and
Yes,
vice
yes,
versa, right?
yes, yes.
When the news broke out that Russia has invaded Ukraine, I started reading about the history of the clashes between Russia and Ukraine, and I've read few things about Granite Revolution, Orange Revolution, and stuff. So, was war and battle a constant dinner table conversation in Ukraine?
Well, we have like very long history of Russia that was trying to dominate over countries around it and exploit the resources from these countries. And this history is much longer than the last 30 years, like the years of independence of Ukraine. It's 500 years that Russia is trying to spread its imperialistic ambition and to invade the territories of independent countries and just exploit. So it's like this mindset that is not civilized, that is totally colonial mindset, is very backwards kind of thinking. And we are trying to resist this totalitarian system that is uncivilized and that is outdated, because we are trying to protect the democracy in Europe. Ukraine is not the last country for Russia to invade. We need to understand it, that Russia is doing this on a constant basis. It did it to Chechnya, to Moldova. There is Russian influence in the military conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia. Russia was also having a war with Finland like 100 years ago. And with all the neighboring countries around it, they keep this tension. They are trying to spread the fear, and their methods are totally terroristic methods. They commit war crimes. They kill civilian people. They torture civilian people and war prisoners. And that's like absolute violation of even the rules of war. That's why we are trying to raise awareness about what Russia is, and tell it like from our hearts, so that the people from other countries could feel it like through our own experience.
So, what you're saying is this is not a one-off clash between Ukraine and Russia has been doing it constantly throughout history to all of its neighboring countries, right?
Yes, yes. There was a Russian empire for 300 years that exploited resources of Ukraine.
Okay.
And in the beginning of 20th century, there were attempts of Ukraine to become independent, but then the communist movement coming from Russia, these attempts, and they took power in the beginning of 20th century. And that's how Ukraine became the part of Soviet Union. Like the Soviet Union was consisted of a lot of countries, again, around Russia. And the Russian nation was a leading nation in Soviet Union. During 30s, my family, like it's, this story is very personal. My grandmother lost 4 siblings during famine caused by Russia. It is genocide against our nation in the east of Ukraine, caused by Russia.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, this country was constantly it is responsible for the crimes of Soviet Union too. And their agenda was to make their language a dominant language, to make their culture a dominant culture. They were killing our artists, our writers, our directors, especially in the 70s. Like they were trying to erase our culture, to erase any sense of freedom that we wanted. But in 90s, Ukraine gained independence, and Russia didn't quite like it. They always wanted to have an influence on us, and there was a huge economical influence. But during Orange Revolution, we wanted to state that we are going for the presidents with more European values, that is more Europe-oriented president. And during the Revolution of Dignity in 2013, 2014, we made it very clear to Russia that there could not be a pro-Russian politics anymore. We don't want that. We want to be with democratic values, with democratic countries. We want to be with European countries. And from 2014, the events, how the events unfolded. They annexed Crimea and they invaded the east of Ukraine. They brought their troops to the east of Ukraine. So it's like overview of the conflict, but the imperialistic ambition of Russia lasts for more than 500 years. Since its existence, it's like the evil that never ends. And I believe that the world should resist such imperialistic ambitions. You understand me very well because you're from India and you are living in a post-colonial era, and you don't want India to become someone's colony again. You don't want that for your country. So the same, you probably could feel me, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I can. So coming back to Dad's Lullaby, we are shown Serhiy's kids, playing in an aggressive way, talking about war and listening to war songs and such things. And then there is one particular scene where I think Sasha or Nikita, I don't know who, his hands gets tied and he struggles to reach out to a book. So were you telling in a soft way that how violence is robbing kids of their education and childhood essentially?
Yeah, it's it's their way of education. Like they grew up with the military songs, with the songs created by volunteers or the soldiers. they grew up with this horrible news and with the experience that their father is embodying. And this experience is transmitted, like it's called re-traumatization. Like he has his own trauma, like the anger that he can't control sometimes affects his children. And then they get this anger.
He slaps his children, right?
You don't
He
see.
slaps his kid, right?
Yes, he slaps his kid in another room. You don't see it on the screen.
Mm.
But
Yes.
this aggression and anger, it's part of these kids growing up, and it becomes the part of their games. Like sometimes, they feel really cruel towards each other. These boys, like the older
Correct.
boy towards the youngest boys. But at the same time, it's their way to process all these complex feelings. And you also have in the film the moments of love and compassion between the brothers. Like you could feel that they are sometimes cruel with each other, but other days they really rely on each other and they seek support in each other when their parents are not emotionally available. So it's like very, very complex. You can't just say that the war experience robs them of education. It also educates them in a way, but it's education through pain. These kids are learning to live their lives through pain. They were separated from their father for 2 years when they fled to Canada. Like I'm speaking about the after film life of the family. Like they didn't have chance to see their father, to feel his presence for 2 years. And that's a real challenge for a family. That's a real challenge. And I can't even imagine what their future will be when they will become like grown-ups. What thoughts will they have? Will they be able to have a family?
Yeah, they'll eventually grow up in a fatherless household, which is going to have a lasting trauma through the rest of their
Yeah.
lives. This is a really psychologically impactful film. And since you said that you have a personal experience of dating a soldier, so how mentally were you prepared to make this film?
My ex-partner broke up with me when I was doing my film research, and I started taking medication. Like I got psychiatric help. I was the person who asked for help. Like there are many people who don't even acknowledge that they have this right and the chance to ask for help. But I did that. Like I had a psychologist and psychiatrist who provided me with the tools, with the instruments, how to be with my life. And I was lucky because I also had a job, like a meaningful job back then. I worked in a creative agency that was communicating social projects. And in the last year of my work, I was involved in the communication of mental health for Ukraine project. So I was working exactly with this topic. And because I have this privilege of being an artist, I had a camera, I had work, like all of this. It actually helped me to live with my psychological burden. But there are a lot of people who don't have money, like who don't have money to go to the psychiatrist, to go to psychologist. This service is also expensive. And the good professionals, they cost a lot. So like my situation was not as harmful as the situation of Serhiy's family. Like Serhiy didn't have an opportunity to go to the psychiatrist, to go to the psychologist. He simply didn't have even money for paying for this service because he had to provide for 4 children. So I believe that like my environment supported me in a way. So I was able to make this film, and I was getting more and more stronger while making the film. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, yeah, you did. You did. You did. Um, and towards the end of this documentary, Serhiy says that you wanted to end this film on a positive and a loving note, but life is not like that. So, how did you really want to end the documentary? And did Serhiy's perspective make you change the end?
Uh, of course, when I started filming, I wanted this couple to stay together. I was wishing a happy end for my documentary. But the reality is much more complex and unpredictable. And once they got the fourth baby, once the baby daughter was born, the responsibilities of my main protagonist, they became like much heavier. And he just couldn't cope. On one side, it's a beautiful event because the daughter is born. On other hand, it's demanding. He needs to work more. He needs to adjust to the baby waking up at night several times. And be more present for the kids. And he just couldn't. This it is a tragedy in its core. And of course, once he separated, I decided to film like a very honest dialogue with him and ask him how he is feeling about this event of separation, to make him like more complex character, to give him some empathy, to give him a voice. And of course, the end is ambiguous. Of course, you feel that it's a tragic movie. It ends on the sad note that he's separated from the family. He's now alone in his own world, and he's blaming himself. But what I also was trying to create is this feeling that the kids and the wife, they continue to live their life. And whatever it will be, they are doing their tasks on a daily basis. They are just there for each other. I don't know if it gave these glimpses of hope for you were watching the film, but some viewers share like their feelings that they feel probably it's even better for the family, that now they are on their own and he is on his own. And he still is involved in raising his children. He's like financially supporting the family. All these years that he fought in the large-scale invasion, he was mostly giving his salary to his children for them to be able to have that life in Canada. And sometimes when I think about his future, I really hope that the kids will be warm to him, that the kids will have some sense of gratitude, that they will understand and they will forgive him. And at some point, they will take care of him. That's, of course, my beautiful wish. I don't know what will come in the future, but I wish it was like that.
And the tragic way that you decided to end the documentary has also helped in conveying the huge cost of war, because Serhiy tells that I'm tired of being responsible for others. What he meant was he's tired of being responsible for protecting the citizens and their country, and when it becomes too hard, he kind of deserts his family, and that's where his presence is more needed. And I could sense this overbearing, sorry, not overbearing. I could sense him being overburdened.
Yes, yes.
Serhiy is constantly is Serhiy, both on the professional and the personal side, is seen as someone who has to cover for everyone, who has to safeguard everyone, who has to stand in the front line for everyone. And since that's that's what was expected of him during the war, he couldn't, uh, be a he couldn't be a responsible father uh, when that was what was needed out of him when the fourth child was born. So that tragic end, is more or less it was so effective to the point that how bad or how unnecessary war is, and how pervasive it could get, and how much damage it could cause to individuals and families.
Yeah, we really try to convey all of these ideas, and your reading of the film is very precise. I'm glad that you were able to connect to our movie and to feel what you wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Um, whenever Sahi was talking to you, the camera was kind of unsteady. You kind of had some unconventional shots to him.
Yeah.
Is it was it a decision that you arrived at, given how confused Sahi was about his life?
It is more about like feeling relationship between me and him. I was always filming myself. I didn't have a camera person. And during this dialogue, when he was cracking, he was about to cry because it was very bitter, it was very painful to him. Like I felt that I need to watch his eyes and that I can't watch the composition of the shot. And that is, like as a human, I feel that this was the right way to do it. And I forgave myself the shots that are not perfect, but there is some authenticity in them because I wanted to give him my full attention.
Mm-hmm.
And when he is holding the camera, of course, it's very different. Like you could feel that it's not a person who is professional in cinema, that it's shaky, that it's blurry. You could feel that the film protagonist becomes like becomes someone who is co-participating in creating this film. Uh, so we hope to convey this approach. That's why we edited it that way.
Okay, 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 I get it. Um, I want to understand how Ukrainians are at the moment right now through you. How will you describe your nation 15 years ago and how it is right now?
Well, 10 years ago, I think we were hopeful and very much naive. And there is no this naive way of seeing the world anymore. The darkness of war, it just it showed us what the human really is, what the human is capable of.
Hmm.
And we understood a lot the complexity of this world. Like the modern world is very much consumeristic. And the Europe, the USA are trying to put sanctions on Russia, economical sanctions. But in these drones that fall on Ukraine, we find details from all countries in the world. So the sanctions of this consumeristic world don't work. There are people who are selling the details to Russia, who are selling weapons to Russia, like Iran and North Korea started collaborating with Russia. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's
They've even deputed soldiers in Russia recently, North
yes,
Korean soldiers.
you understand that the values are completely crushed,
Mm,
and we need to build our own values. You know, like we need to be very assertive and strong. Like there is no way to say, okay, I'm not doing it anymore. Like I'm not fighting for freedom anymore. There is no way to say it because
mm,
these people who live on occupied territories by Russia, who
mm,
can't leave these territories, they are also our responsibility. You know, there are a lot of old people who don't have means to flee, like who don't have means to live. And there were so
mm,
many like war crimes committed on these occupied territories that we feel very, very responsible for liberating the territories and
mm,
bringing to the world the truth that this was done and this was done. There are like plenty of mass graves. You know, it's
mm,
like restoring this historical truth.
mm,
So now I would say hopeful and assertive and strong. And back 10 years ago, we were hopeful and naive. And that was also a mistake, you know, like it was a process of learning. It was a long
mm,
process. We didn't realize the big ambition of Russia to capture
mm.
the whole Ukraine, to capture the capital of Ukraine. We didn't realize it 10 years ago. And that
So
was a
you didn't
mistake.
see, so you didn't see the February invasion coming, right? In 2020.
Well, there are people who, of course, and these people are the ones who were on the front since 2014.
Mm,
They knew better actually what
mm,
the enemy is on and what their true face is, and they felt very well that there could be a large scale invasion. But as a
mm,
society, uh, as a whole, I believe we didn't listen enough to these people who fought hard and who got a real sense of what Russia is. And,
mm,
you know, these are tangible questions that we need to address and we need now
mm.
to process and to live with it.
Yeah. Okay. In Dad's Lullaby, and during the in the beginning of our conversation, you held such a strong opinion about Russia. Uh, you called them out as the enemy, but whereas in Dad's Lullaby, you didn't clearly point out an enemy. Dad's Lullaby was more or less uh, like it it just calls war as bad. It doesn't tell this country is bad. This country's ambitions are, too aggressive and too undemocratic. So, did you want Lullaby to be a film, a political film? And my second question is, do you want in future to call out Russia in a more, you know, in a more categorical manner in your future projects?
Well, I'm making artistic films, and they you don't need to pack explicit message that Russia is a terrorist state in the film. The purpose of the film is to convey all this burden, all this emotional burden. And once the person who watches realized that this Serhiy, like this film protagonist, he lost his personal happiness once Russia entered Ukraine. Like he sacrificed his personal happiness for protecting his country. And this is clear, there are songs in the film where, for example, Artem, the middle brother, is listening to one of the songs.
Yes.
And from this song, you can learn or you can understand that the Russian way of having a war is to kill even wounded, like to kill people who are already weak. They constantly violate the rules of war. And, well, I didn't want to hate anyone. Really, I was raised with humanistic values. Like my parents were trying to put so much kindness in my heart and to make me loving, like to make me someone who doesn't have enemies. So, it's not my fault now that there is this huge terror conducted towards my country, and I have this hate in my heart. Like, I need to cope with it. I have the right to feel it. And, well, I would want to hope that Russia will change in the future. I would want to hope that they ask about forgiveness, that they acknowledge their crimes, but I can't be sure about that. This is more than a decade that they are having this cruel war against us.
Back to the question, um, Dad's Lullaby is Serhiy's experience of war, right? But at the same time, you two have a connection to the story. You two have relatable aspects to the story. So, how much did you want Dad's Lullaby to be your film, and how much did you want it to be Serhiy's film?
Well, it's a universal story. I wanted, of course, to focus fully on Serhiy and to open him up, and that's why I'm there too. Like the purpose of these dialogues and of my presence is to open him up, because war veterans, they sometimes face difficulties talking about themselves, like using first person format of conveying their stories. Like for them, it's easier to project their feelings on someone. And for my main protagonist, it was like therapeutic, to ask me difficult questions. Is it possible to love the same way? Why didn't you love the same way? But our story is the story of many people. Like I have friends in my close environment who divorced and they are on their own. My ex-partner, he married a woman after he broke up with me, but by now he is divorced. So the relationship with her didn't work out as well. And these people who come back from war, they are so broken mentally that for them, sometimes it's easier to find meaning in their life, in the job they are doing, like doing something that is that has social value after their return home. For them, it's very difficult to stay in family relationship. And I personally, I don't know how to solve it, if there is any solution to it.
So, Dad's Lullaby moves through the point of view of Serhiy,
Yes.
and his wife more or less stays in a passive kind of a space. So, did you find any semblance of yours in her?
Yes, definitely. She was um, she was a person enduring a lot of pain,
Mm,
and she didn't have a choice. She just had to raise her kids because the father is not there anymore, and if she doesn't
mm,
do it, then they will go to orphanage. Like it's very heavy. But at the same time, I connected to Serhiy as a film protagonist on this level of vulnerability. Like some people are more psychologically vulnerable than others. So what I felt while making That's Lullaby, that Nadia, the wife of Serhiy, she somehow has this strength in herself, to endure these events that happened in her life and to continue. Like I felt that she's much stronger than me,
That she
and I'm
continues to,
probably yes.
yeah, sorry, go ahead. And to continue to continue to endure and save this marriage and their family some way or the other, right?
Well, as a couple, they they are not together. She is with the children. She is raising the children. He is financing his kids, but they are not a couple anymore. And I don't know if
No,
they will. Yeah.
I'm asking about I'm asking about their family before the split,
Okay.
not after the split.
Okay.
So she was
Uh,
trying to save the family and her marriage.
yeah, I think that she was trying to keep it together,
Hmm.
but I think that she lost also this ability of being close. Like
Hmm.
after he was away for 3 years and he came back as a completely different person, I think there was a sense of alienation. Like
Hmm.
they couldn't be the same anymore with each other. And her way of expressing herself also became very much restrained. Like it's this
Hmm.
suppressed sadness. I didn't feel um, joy, like I didn't feel much joy during these short moments of their interaction, their being together. But of course, in documentary, it's like, you are not allowed to all the doors. You are there when you are there, when these people allow you to be there. So I think that there is part of the story that is left outside of my film. And probably there was part of the story of extreme tenderness and
Hmm.
euphoria. And that's how they actually arrived to having a fourth child. Obviously, they wanted to be together, in that time when they conceived a first child. But this time didn't last long.
So, what would you? Ukraine has endured a lot of all kind of losses. What would you like to tell to people, non-Ukrainian people, about the cost of war and imperialistic tendencies, maybe?
I would like to say that it is still important to keep track on things. And
Mm.
it is important to go a little bit beyond reading the news. Go to watch documentaries, films, exhibitions that have like a component about the war, that
Mm.
um, have more personality of the war. It is important to try to follow probably on social media these activists, journalists, filmmakers from Palestine, from Ukraine, all these places, because they are like first witnesses, and through there, sometimes I read what these people experience, like on their skin. I read and it touches me. It's the way to preserve our humanity, because the news, they are mostly about numbers, and numbers don't really touch our hearts. So it is still like important to try to balance. I understand that people in India, they have a lot of social problems themselves too, that they are struggling, that it's a country with a lot of poor people who don't have access to goods. Uh, but the ones who have like any availability, like emotional availability to feel others' pain, it's it is important to preserve something beautiful in us, to try to hear these stories of first witnesses,
Mm.
to be active, at least in this way, like as individuals.
Okay, okay. So I wouldn't call our conversation a pleasure or a nice conversation because uh, you you were only trying to convey the kind of pain that your nation has endured. Um, what I would like to say is it takes immense courage to bring to screen the emotional losses that people face out of war and not just show the bullet wounds and bombings and stuff. You could have easily made such a documentary. I think this is the only war documentary that I watched without a single gunshot or an explosion. It's only the aftermath of everything and how a family tries to stick to itself together even after suffering emotional losses of war. So it takes courage for you to convey this. So I would like to thank you for making us aware of what you people are going through.
Thank you,
And
Akshay. It was a deep experience for me, and your questions are very, very honest and genuine.
thank you.
And I'm very grateful for this
Mm,
chance to see your eyes and to share. I know that it can be very uncomfortable to face so much pain at once, but once we, live with it, it becomes easier in the long run, I hope.
mm. Hope you find some comfort through Dad's Lullaby, and hope it brings some kind of a comfort to the war-ravaged Ukraine, and hope the people of Ukraine finally get back to their lives. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you so much.
I'm at a loss of words actually. Yeah, thank you for
Thank
joining us.
you. Have a
Thank
beautiful
you.
day, Akshay.
You too.
See you.